What's up, basketball fans? I'm your host and lifetime Magic fan, Angel Figueroa, and this is Magic Monthly.
You're watching Behind the Sidelines with Angel Figueroa.
In this Magic-centric episode, we are going to be discussing a lot of topics. The trade deadline, who I think could get traded, and some trade ideas that I have. What's been up with Cole Anthony lately? Obviously, he's been struggling. We'll talk more about that. Our All-Star Weekend participants as well. We have a couple of those. And lastly, I will give my Magic Player of the Month for the month of January. So let's get started with the trade deadline. Obviously, the Magic have a couple of candidates that I could see getting moved this deadline. Obviously, starting off with Terrence Ross. Obviously, he's the longest tenured Magic player. He has done a lot of great things for the Magic, and once they've really figured out that he could be a six-man of the year type of candidate, I think that really worked with the Magic's two playoff teams that they had in 19 and 20. But he's kind of out of place on this team. You know, he's on the wrong side of 30, and I do think he's still a really valuable player to a big-time contender, potentially a finals contender. But some of the teams I think could be interested in that a deal would make sense with are the Cleveland Cavaliers, as they might be looking for a little more scoring punch next to Darius Garland. The Memphis Grizzlies, who I think just need more depth, more shooting, definitely. And I think he could be really valuable for them off of their bench. And then the Utah Jazz, who recently lost Joe Ingles to a season-ending injury. I think they're definitely looking to replace his minutes, and I think a Human Torch-like player like Terrence Ross that can get hot in a couple minutes would definitely help them out. They would have him and Jordan Clarkson off the bench, so if one doesn't have it going, I guess you just feed the other guy, right? But then you can also look at the Magic, who have Gary Harris, who's another veteran, very similar to Terrence Ross, a 3-and-D guy. Obviously, Gary's a lot better on defense, and he's actually a more accurate three-point shooter. He's been pretty underrated this season. I mean, he's been super solid for the Magic, averaging like 12 points a game, shooting about 40% from the three-point line. He's had some really good months here with the Magic. I don't know if he's just playing that well because he's in a contract year or he just really wants to be traded to a contender. But I think that he's a winning player. I just think the only problem is his $20 million contract, obviously. But I could see a couple of teams trading for him. The reason why he's a little more difficult is because of the contract, $20 million. How are you going to match that salary without giving up too much to get him, right? A couple of teams I have for him are Cleveland again, who I think can give up that Rubio contract considering he's out for the season, and potentially maybe give the Magic a first-round pick, maybe one of their end-of-the-bench young guys. That could probably get the deal done for the Magic. I'm sure they're not looking for too much for Gary Harris, considering he is an expiring contract and you don't know how much it's going to take to retain him in the offseason. And a similar deal with these other teams with Boston. They could give like the Al Horford contract, and then you could give some draft compensation or a young player to entice the Magic to take on that extra year of Horford. And I think it helps them obviously with their three-point shooting and defense in Boston. For Atlanta, it would basically be a Gallinari for Harris switch straight up. I do think the Hawks would have to include at least that Charlotte first rounder that they got in the New York Knicks trade for Cam Reddish. But I think that could help them with their backcourt defense. Obviously, they're in need of that. And lastly, for Gary, the Utah Jazz, once again, they're looking to replace Joe Ingles' minutes, and I think Gary would be a nice option for them. And then obviously the last person is Mo Bamba, who might shock some people because he's actually having his best season of his career. He's averaging 10 points and 8 rebounds and about 2 blocks a game. He's actually top 5 in the league in shot blocking currently. He's had a great month of January, actually. He shot 50% from the field, 40% from three-point range, and about 80% from the free throw line. Those are all great shooting numbers. I think the problem with Bamba is he's just never consistent enough to like warrant all the minutes that he's getting right now. And he's usually not out there in crunch time minutes. And I feel like that tells you something when even the coach doesn't want to put him out there at the end of games. They just don't trust that he's going to give 100% effort all the time. You know, as a Magic fan, we're always holding out hope that he's going to be better than he actually is. But maybe it's just time for him to have a change of scenery. I mean, you know, the guy's got a lot of potential. You know, Rudy Gobert with a jump shot, right? That's the dream scenario for Magic fans. But I don't know. I just don't see him like realizing that on this team. I think there's better options. You know, Wendell. If the Magic get a top 3 pick, which is looking like in this coming draft, there's 3 big guys at the top of the draft. I mean, how many big guys are you going to have on this team, right? We're not going back to those Rob Hennigan days where we signed 3 centers. Like, you know, you already have Wendell, you're going to have J.I., and then you're going to add, you know, Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, Paolo Banchero. Like, any of those guys will probably give you more production than what Bamba is giving you now. And yeah, I just think you might be able to get some decent value before a team, you know, maxes him out. Not give him the max, obviously, but like gets him out of your price range in the offseason. You know, I could see a team like Detroit giving him a decent sized contract, or even OKC. Yeah, a young team that they're just looking for an up-and-coming center that they think, you know, maybe they can get something out of him that they didn't see in Orlando. But teams that could be interested are Charlotte, who's always looking for a center. I think you could do a PJ Washington swap for him. Detroit's interesting. I mean, they don't really have picks that they would give up. You would kind of just be looking at one of their young players, maybe Hamidou Diallo. It's not the best, right? Dallas, Josh Green would be the only guy I would really be interested in terms of the young guys that they'd be willing to give up on that team. Obviously, you're not going to get Brunson. Obviously, you're not going to get Luka. But, you know, that could be something interesting, you know, at least worth listening to. And then OKC is the other option. Really, Derek Favors expiring and one of their like million picks. I think that would be a good option. I mean, can't hurt them that much to part with one pick when they have, you know, a million picks. I think that would be a really logical trade, actually. And they don't really have a ton of young talent yet, but I could see them liking Mo Bamba, pairing him with Giddey, Dort, and Shea, and then, you know, picking a 4 in this upcoming draft, and you have a pretty good lineup there. Pretty good young lineup. I don't know. I could see OKC definitely being interested in Mo Bamba, though. Moving on to the next segment here. What is up with Cole Anthony? He has been really, really struggling on offense lately. In the month of January, he played 13 out of the 15 games, coming off of an ankle injury. That is definitely something worth mentioning. Considering maybe it's affected his offense, his quickness, maybe, you know, his lift on his jumper. I don't know. There could be a lot of reasons, but I mean, he did not have a good January. He averaged about 14 points on 33% from the field and 23% from 3. Yikes. He even struggled from the free throw line, which is usually a really great free throw shooter, but only 77% from the line in the month of January. Something else that could have, you know, potentially bothered him is when Suggs returned, he just got less touches, which is, you know, always hard for a, you know, shoot first point guard, guy that has the ball in his hands all the time. It's hard for him to adjust potentially. I don't know. He's been struggling shooting the ball. There's not much else to say. He's turning it over a lot too. I know he kind of like, he gives you that thing where he like racks up a lot of assists, but he's not always the great decision maker, right? Like sometimes he'll get a rebound. He actually did this in the Chicago game tonight, and he got a rebound and he like threw it all the way across court with one hand to Gary Harris, and it was just like, why make that pass in that moment? You know, just take a couple dribbles up, wait for other guys to get up the court. You know, those are those type of plays that it doesn't seem so big in the moment, but that could be, you know, a momentum swing. You know, we had a lot of momentum in that moment, and it kind of, you know, downplayed it a little bit. It stopped it a little bit. So I think he really, you know, he has to get better with his decision making. We can't be too hard on him. He's 21 years old, second season. I mean, he was great in the first month of the year. He was shooting 40% from three, but I don't know. I don't know what the story is with Cole Anthony. Is he an all-star type of player in the future? Or is he like a super high-powered six-man Lou Williams type of player, but more athletic? I don't know. It should be interesting. The battle between him, Fultz, and Suggs for that backcourt spot, like that other backcourt spot right there. I don't know. It's definitely been an interesting thing. Should be interesting when Fultz comes back to see what happens with the lineup. I wonder if they move Suggs to the bench, or if Cole continues to struggle, maybe they can move him. I don't know. Should be interesting to find out. So next up, we're going to talk about All-Star Weekend. It's coming up pretty soon, February 18th to the 20th. And the Magic actually have a couple of participants this season. Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs are all going to be in the Rising Stars game this season, so that should be super fun. That's definitely a must-watch if you're a Magic fan. Basically, your three young studs this season playing in the game, and they're doing like a whole new like thing where it's like there's going to be 4 different teams, and they kind of compete in a tournament. And 2 teams will face each other, and the other 2 teams will face each other, and then they go to a final. Should be really interesting, actually. It looks like, you know, it's a change. I mean, you know, it used to be a rookie-sophomore game. Then it became, you know, just Rising Stars where they would like draft each team. And then it was the US versus the world. So, you know, a fresh new look. Never hurt, you know, could be interesting. And then we have another participant. It's actually the same participant. Cole Anthony is going to be in the slam dunk contest, continuing the long tradition of Magic players being in the slam dunk contest. Obviously, you know, Aaron Gordon, Dwight Howard. You had Otis Smith back in the day. Yeah, there's Victor Oladipo is another one. The Magic just really like being in the slam dunk contest. And I think Cole has a decent shot at winning. I mean, his competitors are Obi Toppin of the Knicks, Jalen Green from Houston, the rookie, and Juan Toscano Anderson from the Warriors, which was pretty surprising pick. I feel like he's only really had like one poster dunk, but who knows? Maybe he has something that we haven't seen yet. But I do think Cole has a pretty decent chance of winning because, you know, little guys are actually, they fare pretty well in this contest. It just looks more impressive when a little guy jumps really high and does an amazing dunk. So I think he has a decent shot. And last up, I give my Magic Player of the Month, which there were a lot of candidates. Mo Bamba was a candidate. Gary Harris, Terrence Ross, Franz Wagner was a candidate. But I ended up going with the guy that I think he's the player of the month because he's honestly the most improved this month, and that is Chuma Okeke. He played 13 out of 15 games in January. He averaged 9.5 points a game, 5.5 boards, about 2 assists, almost 2 steals, and almost a block on 41% shooting, which isn't that great, but he shot 38% from 3, which is a massive improvement from what he's been shooting. He's been shooting in the 20s basically this entire season. And he shot 88% from the free throw line in 26 minutes a game. I mean, Chuma has really been struggling since coming off of an injury. I don't know, he just hasn't been the same player from last season. I just think he's really out of rhythm. Obviously, last season when he came along, he was getting a lot of touches, but this season he's coming off the bench. You know, Franz has really made a leap that people did not expect. I'm sure Chuma was probably expecting to start this season. The Magic have also been going with the 2 big lineup. So, you know, whether that's worked well or not, you can have your opinions one way or the other, but it's affected him. Obviously, he's not getting the minutes that maybe he feels like he deserves. But I think he's, you know, he really turned the corner this past month. I think he's really just working with what he has right now, and 26 minutes a game is not bad. That's a pretty decent amount. He's almost playing like 6-man minutes. And I think he's been really good in like a limited role. I think he's a great like 3-and-D guy off the bench. And I think that's what he could be on this team in the future. If we're going to contend, obviously, like, you need those guys off the bench. Look at like Cam Johnson in Phoenix. I think that's like a really valuable player that's super underrated. You can even look at like the 2009 Magic, like Michael Petrus coming off the bench, right? He only averaged about like 10 points a game, but he was a good shooter. He had to guard some of the best players in the league, like Paul Pierce, Kobe, obviously in the finals, LeBron. Like, that's a hard job to do. Like, you always need those guys, and Chuma is like on another level defensively. I know he's had his offensive struggles, but he has been really fantastic defensively. He's always been good at getting in the passing lanes. I've always been curious to see him and Jonathan Isaac play together because I just think they would dominate on defense. I think this Magic team is just going to be really good on defense going forward when we get healthy, especially with Suggs coming along defensively as well. He was also a candidate, but his shooting numbers were a little rough, so that's why he didn't get it. But yeah, Chuma is the Magic Player of the Month this month. So that's going to do it for this episode of Magic Monthly. If you guys liked the video, please like, subscribe, comment down below, ring the notifications bell. I love to start a conversation with you guys, especially about my favorite team in the NBA. I know it's been a rough season, but good times are coming, I promise. And yeah, I'm going to try and be doing one of these Magic-centric videos once a month. I hope you guys liked it. And most importantly, have a great rest of your day.